The frozen moon had no name that mattered to anyone alive, and Captain Elena Vasquez liked it that way. She had come here to find forgotten things, broken things. Things the galaxy had left behind her ship, the Second Chance. Sat on a ridge of blue ice while she walked through the howling wind toward a column of smoke rising from the valley below. Something had crashed here, something big. And crashed ships meant salvage, and salvage meant credits. And credits meant survival for another month. Elena pulled her thermal coat tighter and activated the light on her helmet. The beam cut through the swirling snow and revealed the shape of a vessel half buried in the ice. It was black, covered in strange angles, and it looked less like a ship and more like a weapon that had learned to fly Morrow. She said into her communicator, "What am I looking at?" The artificial intelligence that ran her ship took 3 full seconds to respond. And that pause made Elena's stomach turn cold in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. "Captain, I strongly advise you to return to the ship immediately," Morrow said. And his voice carried something she had never heard from him before. Fear. Why? What is it? "The vessel belongs to the Vorkith." Elena stopped walking. Her boots froze in place on the ice, and for a long moment, she forgot how to breathe. Every child in the galaxy grew up hearing stories about the Vorkith. They were the monsters that parents warned their children about. The darkness between the stars, the reason 17 civilizations no longer existed. The Vorkith did not negotiate. They did not trade. They did not show mercy. They simply arrived, and then everything died. "There is a standing order from the Galactic Accord," Morrow continued. "All Vorkith vessels and all Vorkith life forms are to be destroyed on sight. No exceptions. No hesitation. I am required by law to report this location to the nearest military outpost. How long until they get here?" "Approximately 6 hours," Elena stared at the crashed ship. Smoke still rose from its broken hull, which meant the crash had been recent. If anyone had survived, they would freeze to death long before the military arrived. That thought should have brought her comfort. But instead, it made her feel something else. Something she could not name. "I'm going to take a look," she said. "Captain, this is extremely inadvisable." Noted. She walked forward anyway. The ship's hull had been torn open by the impact, and she climbed through a gap in the metal into the darkness inside. Her light revealed strange symbols on the walls, controls that looked like they were designed for hands with too many fingers and bodies. She counted 4 of them, massive creatures with 6 limbs and scales as black as the void between stars. They were all dead, crushed by the crash or frozen by the cold. Elena moved deeper into the wreckage. She told herself she was looking for salvage, for anything valuable, but part of her knew that was a lie. She was looking for something else, something that made no logical sense. She found it in what might have been a sleeping chamber. The cub was small, no larger than a dog, and it was buried under a pile of torn fabric that might have been blankets. Its scales were cracked, leaking fluid that glowed faintly blue in the darkness, and its 6 eyes were dim and barely open. It was dying, and it was terrified, and when Elena's light fell upon it, the creature let out a sound that broke her heart. It whimpered, not a hiss, not the sound of a predator. It was the sound of a child, alone and afraid and cold, calling out for someone to help. Elena stood frozen in place. Every rational thought in her mind screamed at her to walk away. This was a Vorkith, a member of the species that had destroyed more lives than any other force in the galaxy. Even as a cub, it would grow into a monster. Even as a baby, it carried the genetic legacy of genocide. She should leave it to die. Anyone else would. Any other species in the galaxy would consider killing it an act of justice, of self-defense, of simple common sense. But Elena Vasquez was human, and humans were different. She did not understand why she did what she did next. Maybe it was because she had lost her own daughter 10 years ago to a disease that medicine should have been able to cure. Maybe it was because she had spent her whole life feeling like the galaxy was cruel and cold, and she was tired of adding to that cruelty. Maybe it was simply because she looked at this small broken creature and saw nothing but a child who needed help. She knelt down and carefully lifted the cub into her arms. It was lighter than she expected, and warmer too. Its 6 eyes focused on her face, and she could see intelligence there, more than she had expected, along with confusion and fear and something that might have been hope. "It's okay," she whispered. "I've got you. You're going to be okay." The cub made another sound, softer this time, and pressed its face against her chest. "Captain," Morrow's voice crackled in her ear, "your vital signs indicate you are carrying a living organism. Please tell me you did not do what I think you did." "Prepare the medical bay," Elena said. "I'm bringing someone aboard." "Captain, this is a violation of Galactic Accord Order 7. This is treason. This is madness." "Maybe," Elena agreed, "but I'm not going to let a baby die in the cold. Not today, not ever." She carried the cub out of the wreckage and into the storm. The wind howled around her like the voice of a galaxy screaming at her to stop, to turn back, to be reasonable. She ignored it all and kept walking. The cub clung to her with its small clawed hands, and it did not try to hurt her. It simply held on, trusting her completely, the way only a child can trust. When she reached the second chance, she climbed aboard and sealed the door against the cold. The warmth of the ship surrounded her, and she looked down at the creature in her arms. It had closed its eyes and was breathing slowly, peacefully, as if it knew it was safe now. "What have I done?" Elena asked the empty air. She did not know the answer, but she knew one thing for certain. She would not go back. She would not change her mind. She had made her choice, and she would live with the consequences. In 6 hours, the military would arrive and find an empty crash site. By then, Elena and her passenger would be long gone, running toward the unknown, toward danger, toward whatever future awaited a human who had decided to love something the entire galaxy wanted dead. The second chance lifted off from the frozen moon and disappeared into the stars, carrying with it the most unlikely pair the universe had ever seen. A salvage captain with nothing left to lose, and a monster's child with everything to gain. And so began a story that would change the galaxy forever. 3 weeks had passed since Elena pulled the cub from the wreckage, and in that time, everything had changed. She named the creature Kira, after her daughter who had died so many years ago. It felt right somehow, giving this lost child the name of another lost child. It felt like a way of honoring both of them at once. Kira healed faster than Elena expected. The cracks in her scales sealed themselves. The dim glow in her eyes grew bright again. And within days she was moving around the ship with curiosity and energy that reminded Elena of a puppy exploring anew. Homamora watched everything with what Elena could only describe as digital anxiety. He ran constant scans on Kira, analyzed her behavior patterns, and compiled reports that he read to Elena whether she wanted to hear them or not. "The Vorkith are apex predators," he explained for the 100th time as Elena fed Kira a mixture of protein, paste, and vitamin supplements. Their young are designed to hunt from the moment they can walk. They possess natural weapons capable of killing most sentient species. Their aggression is encoded in their genetics. "She doesn't seem aggressive to me," Elena said. Kira sat on the floor beside her, 6 legs folded beneath her body, waiting patiently for her meal. When Elena held out the bowl, Kira took it gently in her clawed hands and began to eat with surprising delicacy. Not once did she snap or growl or show any sign of the violent nature Morrow kept warning about. "That is precisely what concerns me," Morrow said. "This behavior is unprecedented. There is no recorded instance of a Vorkith cub behaving this way. She should have attacked you by now. She should have tried to establish dominance. Instead, she follows you around like a domesticated animal. Maybe she's different. Captain, an entire species does not simply produce one individual who is different. There must be an explanation. The days turned into weeks, and no explanation came. Kira simply continued to be what she was, gentle, curious, and utterly devoted to the human who had saved her life. She learned quickly. Within a few days, she understood Elena's gestures and tone of voice. She knew when Elena was happy or sad or tired. She responded to her name and came when called. She even learned to help with small tasks around the ship, carrying tools or fetching supplies with her 6 nimble hands. More surprising was what she did in her free time. Kira played. She chased bits of string that Elena dangled for her. She rolled balls across the floor and pounced on them. She discovered a mirror in the bathroom and spent hours making faces at her own reflection, and she brought gifts. The first time it happened, Elena woke up to find a small pile of objects beside her bed. A shiny bolt from the engine room, a colorful wire stripped from a non-essential panel, and a smooth stone that Kira must have found in the cargo hold. The cub sat nearby, watching Elena with obvious anticipation, her tail swishing back and forth. "Did you bring these for me?" Elena asked. Kira made a sound that Elena had come to recognize as happiness, a kind of multi-toned purr that resonated from all 6 of her throat chambers. "Thank you," Elena said, and she meant it. "They're beautiful." From that day on, Kira brought her something new every morning. It became a ritual between them, a language of love that needed no words at night. Kira slept curled against Elena's side, her warm body pressed close, her purring filling the darkness like a lullaby. Elena had not slept so peacefully in years. She had forgotten what it felt like to not be alone, but peace could not last forever. Aro detected the first bounty signal 3 weeks into their journey. Someone had reported a human salvage captain harboring a Vorkith life form, and now hunters from across the sector were converging on their last known location. "The reward is substantial," Morrow reported. 10 million credits for the Vorkith, dead or alive. 5 million for you, preferably alive, so you can stand trial for treason. Elena changed course and pushed the engines harder. The second chance was old but fast, and she knew the back routes through this part of space. She had spent years running from creditors and criminals. Running from bounty hunters was not so different, but more signals came. The Galactic Accord had dispatched an enforcement vessel, a military ship with weapons that could vaporize the second chance in a single shot. They were hunting her now, hunting both of them. And Elena understood that there was nowhere in civilized space where she would be safe. "Captain," Morrow said one evening as Elena sat in the cockpit with Kira sleeping in her lap, "I must ask you a question that I have been processing for some time." "Go ahead. Why are you doing this?" "You have sacrificed everything. Your career, your freedom, your future, all for a creature that your own species has deemed an enemy. What possible reason could justify such self-destruction?" Elena looked down at Kira. The cub's eyes were closed, her breathing slow and steady, her claws retracted and harmless. In sleep, she looked like any other baby in the galaxy, innocent and vulnerable and worthy of protection, because she hasn't done anything wrong, Elena said. Her species committed terrible crimes, but she didn't. She's just a child. She didn't choose to be born Vorkith, any more than I chose to be born human. How can I punish her for something she had no control over? The Galactic Accord would argue that the risk is too great, that allowing any Vorkith to survive endangers all other species. Maybe they're right, Elena admitted. Maybe I'm making a terrible mistake. Maybe one day, Kira will grow up and become exactly what everyone fears she'll become. But I don't believe that. I've watched her. I've seen who she is. There's kindness in her, Morrow. Real kindness. And I refuse to destroy that just because everyone else is afraid. Morrow was silent for a long moment. I do not understand your reasoning, he finally said. But I have observed something interesting in my behavioral analysis of Kira. What's that? She loves you. I did not believe Vorkith were capable of love, but the evidence is undeniable. She has imprinted on you, not as prey, not as a rival, but as family. In her mind, you are her mother. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She had not allowed herself to think about it in those terms, but hearing Morrow say it made it real. Then I'll be her mother, she said. And I'll protect her the way any mother would protect her child. Outside the cockpit window, the stars stretched endlessly into the darkness. And somewhere out there, hunters were searching for them. But Elena was not afraid. She had something worth fighting for now, something worth running for, something worth dying for. If it came to that, she would keep Kira safe, no matter what it cost, no matter who came for them. She would not let anyone hurt her child. The Arth Nebula was a graveyard of light, a swirling mass of gas and dust, where dying stars painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. It was also the last refuge of those who had lost everything to the Vorkith. The survivors who called themselves the Remnant Elena had heard rumors about this place for years. It was said that the Remnant welcomed anyone fleeing from injustice, anyone hunted by powers too great to fight. She hoped those rumors were true, because she had nowhere else to go. The second chance drifted through the nebula for 2 days before the Remnant found them. A small fleet of mismatched ships surrounded Elena's vessel, their weapons powered and ready, their communications channels demanding identification. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, she broadcast to the fleet. I am a human, and I am seeking sanctuary. I have nowhere else to turn. A long silence followed, and then a voice responded, old and tired and filled with pain that stretched across centuries. We know who you are. Human. We know what you carry. Why would we welcome the enemy into our home? Elena took a deep breath. She had expected this, because she is not your enemy, she said. She is a child who has harmed no one. I am asking you to see her as she is, not as what you fear she might become. Another silence, even longer than the first. And then the fleet parted, creating a path through the ships toward a station hidden deep within the nebula. You may come, the voice said. But understand this, if we decide she must die, you will not be able to stop us. Elena piloted the second chance through the gap and docked at the station. She carried Kira in her arms as she stepped through the airlock, and what she found on the other side made her heart ache with sorrow. The Remnant were the broken pieces of civilizations the Vorkith had destroyed. Elena saw Elyssi, their tall skeletal frames bent with age, their silver skin marked with scars. She saw Moravine, small furry creatures whose entire species now numbered less than 1,000. She saw Ulu, silent beings made of living crystal, who had once filled an entire world with song and now stood mute and cracked. And hollow, they all stared at Kira with eyes that burned, with hatred and grief and memories too painful to speak. An elder Elyssi stepped forward. His name was Torvan, and he had watched his entire world burn when he was young. Now he was ancient, kept alive by machines and stubborn will. And he had dedicated his long life to one purpose, making sure no one ever forgot what the Vorkith had done. Put the creature down, Torvan commanded. Elena hesitated, but she knew she had no choice. She set Kira gently on the floor and stood beside her. The cub pressed against Elena's legs, trembling with fear. Her 6 eyes wide and frightened. Torvan approached slowly. His movements were stiff with age, but his eyes were sharp and cold. He stopped a few feet away from Kira and studied her for a long moment. I have killed many of her kind, he said. I have fought them in battles that lasted years. I have watched them slaughter millions without hesitation or remorse. They are monsters, Captain Vasquez. They are incapable of mercy, incapable of love, incapable of anything but destruction. She's different, Elena said. That is what you believe. But you are human. Your species is young and foolish. You have not lived long enough to understand what the Vorkith truly are. Torvan leaned closer to Kira, his ancient face inches from her trembling form. Elena tensed, ready to throw herself between them, knowing it would be useless, knowing she could not stop whatever was about to happen. But Kira did something unexpected. She did not growl or hiss or show her teeth. She did not try to run or hide. Instead, she looked up at Torvan with her 6 frightened eyes, and she made a sound that Elena had never heard before, a soft, pleading whine, like a prayer for mercy. And then she reached out one small clawed hand and gently touched Torvan's face. The elder, Ilisi, froze. His whole body went rigid, and Elena saw something shift in his expression, something that cracked the cold mask of hatred he wore. What is this? He whispered. She's showing you that she trusts you, Elena said. She's showing you that she's not afraid of you, even though she should be. She's choosing to be vulnerable. Torvan pulled back slowly. His hands were shaking, and Elena realized with shock that there were tears in his ancient eyes. No Vorkith has ever done this, he said. In all my centuries of fighting them, not one has ever shown submission. Not one has ever chosen peace when violence was possible. They would rather die than appear weak. She's not weak, Elena said. She's brave. It takes more courage to trust than to fight. Torvan was silent for a long time. The other survivors watched in stillness, waiting for his judgment. Finally, he spoke. Why? He asked, and his voice was no longer cold. It was broken, confused, searching for answers. Why did you save her? Why would a human risk everything for a creature that your own laws condemn? What could possibly justify such madness? Elena knelt down beside Kira and put her arm around the trembling cub. Because she hadn't done anything yet, she said. And if I killed her for what her species has done, I would become the very thing I fear. I would become a monster who destroys innocent lives. I refuse to be that. I refuse to add more cruelty to a galaxy that already has too much. Torvan stared at her, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, his expression changed. The hatred did not disappear, but something else appeared alongside it. Doubt, curiosity, and perhaps the smallest flicker of hope. You may stay for 3 days, he said at last. We will watch. We will judge. And then we will decide. He turned to address the gathered survivors. But know this, the adult Vorkith are already hunting. They do not tolerate survivors outside the brood. They will come for this cub. And when they come, they will not come alone. They will bring enough firepower to destroy everything in their path. Elena felt Kira press closer against her. Then we'll face them together, she said. And we'll show them that the galaxy is not as afraid as they think. Torvan studied her for a long moment. And then he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He smiled. You humans are strange creatures, he said. Foolish and brave and impossible to understand. Perhaps that is why the galaxy has not crushed you yet. He turned and walked away, leaving Elena and Kira alone in a crowd of survivors who watched them with eyes that held 1,000 years of pain. But for the first time since she had found Kira in the wreckage, Elena felt something that surprised her. She felt like she was not alone. These broken people, these shattered remnants of dead worlds, they understood loss. They understood grief. And maybe, just maybe, they could understand that some things were worth protecting. Even when the entire galaxy said they should be destroyed 3 days, Elena had 3 days to prove that love was stronger than fear. She hoped it would be enough. The 3 days passed quickly, and during that time, something remarkable happened. The remnant began to change their minds about Kira. It started small. A young Moravian child wandered too close to where Kira was resting. And instead of reacting with aggression, Kira lowered her head and made herself small, showing the universal body language of a larger creature trying not to frighten a smaller one. The Moravian child, curious and fearless the way children always are, reached out and touched Kira's scales. Kira purred, and the child laughed, and suddenly the impossible seemed almost normal word spread through the station. The Vorkith cub did not attack. The Vorkith cub played with children. The Vorkith cub brought small gifts to anyone who showed her kindness. Just as she had done for Elena by the third day, Kira had become something no one expected, a symbol of hope. Perhaps we were wrong, Torvan admitted to Elena as they watched Kira play with a group of refugee children in the station's common area. Perhaps monsters are made, not born. Perhaps hatred teaches hatred, and love teaches love. That's what I've always believed, Elena said. It is a dangerous belief, Torvan replied, because it means we must take responsibility for what our children become. It is easier to believe that evil is inevitable, that some creatures are simply born broken. That way, we never have to ask ourselves what we might have done differently. Elena nodded. She understood what he meant. Blaming nature was simpler than questioning nurture, but before she could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the station, 3 vessels dropping out of fold space. A remnant officer shouted, "Vorkith signatures. Dreadnought class. They found us." The common area erupted into chaos. Parents grabbed their children and ran for shelter. Soldiers rushed to battle stations. The hope that had been building for 3 days shattered in an instant. Replaced by the old familiar Terra, Elena grabbed Kira and held her close. The cub was trembling, her eyes fixed on the viewing screen that showed 3 massive warships emerging from the swirling colors of the nebula. They were black and angular, covered in weapons that could reduce the entire station to dust in seconds. A communication signal cut through the alarms, and a voice filled the station, deep and resonant and utterly without mercy. "We are the brood of Sithara. We have come for the stray cub. Surrender it to us, and we will grant you a swift death. Resist, and we will make your end last for centuries. This is not a negotiation. This is a promise." Torvan turned to Elena, his face grim. "They will destroy us all," he said. "Thousands of survivors from 17 worlds, the last of our peoples. All of us will die here, unless you surrender the cub." Elena looked at Kira, at her frightened eyes, at her trembling body, at the small clawed hands that gripped Elena's coat like she was the only solid thing in a universe of chaos. "I can't," she whispered. "I won't. Then we will all die together." But before Elena could respond, Kira did something that changed everything. She opened her mouth and spoke not in human language, not in the clicks and whistles of the Elyssi, but in the harmonic war tongue of the Vorkith, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating through the station like the voice of a god. Elena stared in shock. She had not known Kira could speak at all, let alone in her native language. But there it was, flowing from all 6 of her throat chambers in perfect harmony, broadcasting on every frequency, reaching the dreadnoughts and everyone aboard. The translation came through a moment later. Processed by the station's computers. "I am Kira, daughter of the lost brood. I have found a new mother. She is Elena Vasquez, a human who pulled me from death and gave me life. She has fed me and protected me and loved me when no one else would. I invoke the bond of teeth and shelter. I claim her as my mother of choice. Any who challenge this bond must face her in the ritual of blood." Silence fell across the station. The Vorkith dreadnoughts hung motionless in space, their weapons still powered but unfired. Something was happening aboard those ships. Something Elena did not understand. Turvin stared at Kira with wide eyes. The bond of teeth and shelter, he breathed. I have heard of this. It is an ancient Vorkith rite, older than their conquests, from a time when they were different. It allows a non-Vorkith to claim a bond with a cub, but only if they prove their worth in ritual combat. Combat against who? Elena asked, but she already knew the answer. The voice came again from the dreadnoughts, but this time it was different. Deeper, older, filled with terrible power. I am Sithara, Brood Queen of the Vorkith. I accept your challenge, human. You will face me in the ritual of blood. If you survive until the suns of your birth world set and rise again, the bond will be recognized. The cub will be yours forever. But if you fall, she returns to us, and you die screaming. Elena felt her legs go weak. She had seen images of Vorkith warriors, 12 feet tall, armored in scales harder than steel, armed with claws that could tear through metal like paper. They were the most lethal creatures in the known galaxy, designed by evolution to kill everything they encountered, and now she had to fight their queen. You don't have to do this, Torvan said, and his voice was gentle now, almost kind. No one would blame you for refusing. This is certain death. Elena looked at Kira. The cub looked back at her, with eyes full of fear and love and desperate hope. She had just spoken for the first time in her life, and she had used that voice to save Elena, to give her a chance, however small. Yes, I do, Elena said. Because she's my daughter. And that's what mothers do. She kissed Kira gently on the forehead. I'll be back, she whispered. I promise. Then she turned and walked toward the docking bay, toward the shuttle that would take her to the Vorkith flagship, toward the most powerful creature in the galaxy behind her. The survivors of 17 worlds watched in silence, witnessing something they had never seen before, a human walking willingly into death. Not for victory, not for glory, but simply for love, and in that moment, even those who had suffered the most at Vorkith hands felt something stir in their hearts. The smallest flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, the universe was not as cruel as they had thought. The ceremonial ground aboard the Vorkith flagship was a vast circular chamber lined with thousands of watching eyes. Adult Vorkith filled the galleries, their massive forms motionless, their bioluminescent markings pulsing in the darkness like stars made of hunger. Elena stood in the center of the arena, feeling very small, very fragile, very human. The Brood Queen emerged from the shadows, and Elena understood immediately that she had never truly comprehended what a Vorkith was until this moment. Sithara was 12 feet of armored perfection, every inch of her body designed for one purpose: destruction. Her claws were longer than Elena's forearms. Her teeth gleamed like knives forged from nightmares. Her 6 eyes burned with intelligence and cruelty, and something that might have been curiosity. You are smaller than I expected, Sithara said, her voice resonating through the chamber. My warriors could crush you with a single blow. I could end you before you even saw me move. Why do you not tremble? Why do you not beg for mercy? Elena took a deep breath. Her heart was pounding so hard, she was sure every Vorkith in the room could hear it, because trembling and begging wouldn't help, she said. And because I made a promise to someone I love. I told her I would come back. I intend to keep that promise. Sithara tilted her massive head, studying Elena the way a predator studies prey that has done something unexpected. Interesting, she said. Very well. Let us see what kind of creature you truly are. She attacked. Elena did not try to fight back. She knew that was impossible. Instead, she dove to the side, rolling across the arena floor as Sithara's claws tore through the space where she had been standing. She scrambled to her feet and ran, putting distance between herself and the queen. Knowing that every second she survived was a victory, Sithara laughed. A terrible sound that echoed off the walls. You run like prey, she said. All the species we have conquered ran like prey. They screamed and fled and died with terror in their eyes. Is that what you are? Just another frightened animal waiting to be consumed? She lunged again, faster than anything that size should be able to move. Elena threw herself sideways, but this time she was not fast enough. One of Cythera's claws caught her shoulder, tearing through her coat and the flesh beneath. Blood sprayed across the arena floor. Elena gasped in pain but did not fall. She pressed her hand against the wound and kept moving, kept dodging, kept refusing to stop. The hours blurred together. Elena lost track of time, lost track of how many wounds she had taken. Blood soaked her clothes. Her legs burned with exhaustion. Her vision swam with pain and fatigue. But every time she fell, she got back up. Every time Cythera knocked her down, she rose again. The Vorkith in the galleries began to murmur. They had never seen anything like this. Every species they had fought had either attacked with desperate rage or collapsed in helpless terror. This human did neither. She simply endured, refusing to give up, refusing to die, fighting not with weapons, but with sheer stubborn will. Cythera noticed the change in her people. She noticed the way they were looking at this tiny, bleeding creature with something that was not contempt. She felt something stir in her own hearts, something she had not felt in centuries. Why? She demanded, pausing in her assault. Why do you keep rising? You cannot win. You cannot even hurt me. What is the point of this suffering? Elena stood on shaking legs, her body a map of wounds, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The point, she said, is that Kira is watching. Somewhere on that station, she is watching this, and she needs to know that I will never stop fighting for her. She needs to know that love does not give up, that love does not surrender, that love keeps getting back up no matter how many times it falls. Cythera stared at her. Love, she repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. You speak of love for a Vorkith. We have destroyed civilizations. We have ended billions of lives. We are the nightmare that haunts this galaxy. And you claim to love one of us? I love Kira, Elena said. I love her because she showed me that monsters are not born, they are made. I love her because she chose gentleness when she could have chosen violence. I love her because she trusted me even though she had no reason to. And I will keep loving her until my heart stops beating. Cythera moved forward, slowly this time, not attacking but approaching. She circled Elena like a predator, examining something it did not understand. No species has ever said such words to a Vorkith, she said. No creature has ever looked at one of our young and seen anything but a threat to be eliminated. What are you, human? What strange madness drives your kind? Elena met the Brood Queen's eyes without flinching. We are the ones who adopt, she said. We are the ones who protect. We are the ones who love things that could destroy us. And that is not madness. It is the best part of who we are. Cythera raised her claw. One strike would end Elena's life. The ritual would be over. Kira would return to the brood, but the strike never came. Instead, Cythera lowered her arm and stepped back. Her 6 eyes studied Elena with an expression that was almost like respect. The ritual is complete, she announced to the watching Vorkith. This human has proven her worth. The bond is recognized. The cub belongs to her. A murmur swept through the galleries. Shock and confusion and something that might have been wonder. Elena collapsed to her knees, too exhausted to stand. But she was smiling, tears streaming down her blood-stained face. Thank you, she whispered. Cythera looked down at her. And for the first time, the coldness in her eyes softened. Do not thank me, human, she said. You have done something far more dangerous than you understand. You have shown my people that there is another way to be. You have planted a seed of doubt in hearts that have known only certainty for millennia. I do not know if that seed will grow, but I know it will never be forgotten." She turned to address her fleet. "We will leave this place. We will not harm the survivors. Let it be recorded that on this day, a human taught the Vorkith something we had forgotten. That strength is not only the power to destroy, but also the courage to love." The dreadnoughts withdrew, disappearing into the darkness of space, and on the station, surrounded by the survivors of 17 worlds, Kira watched the view screen and wept with joy. Her mother was alive. Her mother was coming home. Her mother had proven to the galaxy that love was stronger than fear. Years passed, and the story spread across the stars. It became a legend, then a myth, then a hope that changed everything. The Vorkith did not become friends of the galaxy overnight, but they stopped their conquests. They began to talk instead of kill. They learned, slowly and painfully, that there were other ways to be strong, and at the heart of it all was a simple truth that a human, salvage captain had discovered in the wreckage of a crashed ship. That anyone else would have been wise enough to kill a monster's child. But wisdom is not always the highest virtue. Sometimes the thing that saves us all is the foolish, irrational, unstoppable power of love on the day the first Vorkith Galactic Peace Treaty was signed. Ambassador Kira stood beside her aging mother and spoke to the assembled delegates. "A human found me dying in the snow," she said. "Anyone else would have been wise enough to kill me. She was foolish enough to love me instead. And that foolishness saved us all." Elena smiled and took her daughter's hand, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, believed that tomorrow might be better than today.